Welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm Sal Interdonato. That's Steve Anderson. This is a very special edition of the Black Knight Nation podcast. It's number 100, Steve. We made it to triple digits on the Black Knight Nation podcast, and we couldn't have done it without our guest here today, Joe Ross. Joe Ross is president of Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon has sponsored this podcast pretty much from the jump. And Joe, we can't thank you so much for sponsoring this podcast, and then having you on the podcast for the first time here is also an honor for us because we got a lot to talk about with your career as an Army football player and beyond that. So thanks a lot, Joe, for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be able to support your podcast and share our stories from our Army brotherhood. So thank you for having me.
And Joe, I was talking about this before you came on. You and Steve have something in common. You're both from the great state of Maryland, right? I mean, so
yeah.
we got
best athletes come from the state of Maryland. That's all I can say. I used to have this argument with my teammates.
That's right.
Yeah, so we usually start this podcast off of how your Army recruiting story, so to speak, and how you were recruited by Army, how you got to West Point. You have a unique story, Joe, about how you first got interested in West Point and how you got there?
Oh yeah, I mean, I got interested because they started recruiting me my junior year, and out of all the schools recruiting me, Army sent a letter or a postcard every single week, and I just thought that was very, very impressive. Coach Warner was the recruiting coordinator back then. Coach Young was the head coach, and Coach Dornbos ended up finishing the recruiting cycle, but they just, literally that was every week I got something in the mail, and I was just taken aback by it. Also I played for a running team. We had a power I offense. I ran the ball probably 25, 30 times a game. And, out of all the schools recruiting me, that was the running team. And I was like, okay, if I can still run the ball, that would be pretty cool. And I was lucky. I played for Wally Maley, who played for the Green Bay Packers under Vince Lombardi. He went to Syracuse as a quarterback and ended up playing defensive back for the Packers, probably only 2 years. And he moved into my area, my sophomore year of high school. And he ended up being my freshman year of high school. But he ended up being our head coach for my last 3 years. And he was just a power offense guy. But he was big in the mental part of the game and all that stuff. So everything that I learned from the mental part of the game just transferred right into West Point for their Center for Enhanced Performance and all that stuff. But he was a big part of it. He sent all the recruiting tapes out and said, hey, this is how you do it. And, came down to the end. It was Penn State, Syracuse, Army, the Navy, Merchant Marine Academy, Ivy League schools. And it just came down to Army and Navy. And I went on a recruiting visit to both. And Navy, it just set me wrong because they were passing offense. And George Chump was the head coach. And he treated me like a chump. Versus Army, which was just warm and welcoming. And I was like, hey, this is where I want to be.
Joe, what high school was that you played at?
I played for Bishop Walsh High School in Cumberland, Maryland. So Western Maryland, real far west.
Yeah. No, I was talking to Sal about that. I said Eastern, but yeah, Cumberland's like the edge of Maryland.
That little piece of Maryland between West Virginia and Pennsylvania. I can get in 5 minutes.
Yeah, when I used to drive home from Fort Campbell and come through West Virginia into Maryland. That's right. I remember seeing.
So you went on 68?
Yep, went to Cumberland. So I'm just a little past that up in Frederick. So just about another hour east. So.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Damascus.
Oh yeah. You guys played our rival Fort Hill and Allegheny, probably.
Oh yeah, we played them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny you mentioned your high school coach being kind of the guy that set you on the path for Center for Enhanced Performance because not the high school I graduated from, but the first high school I went to, that football coach was very big into, he would call it, visualization, but we know it is more as imagery, right? Bringing in all the senses, not just kind of watching it go. And, Joe, you're the first guy that introduced me to it when I got to the academy at prep school. When I got to prep, you came down, talked about it, and it all sounded very familiar because that's what my coach from my first high school preached, and it's what I hope to do after my KD time as a major is to go to school and get my sports psych degree. But I've always, with you, Major Chadwick, and then Major Tillman now, I'm pretty sure he's lieutenant colonel. He might be a colonel at this point. Both, I worked in that. I would live there. If I had a breaking class, I went in there. So,
pretty cool. All the linebackers did. It was like linebacker you at Center for Enhanced Performance.
The game within the game.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's so important because you get the just formation recognition and just seeing the first step. Once you understand the formation recognitions, I mean, that's huge for a defense. You can just play so much faster.
Yeah, I remember when we first started, it would, you'd have a script, right? And you sit in your chair or whatever. And by the time I graduated, I mean, we had this big screen that had the formation on there. And basically what I practiced was I would take my initial steps, right? And then visualize, imagine me making the play, whichever way, called out, get set. It's pretty cool how far the CEP at West Point's come since I started.
Oh yeah. And really that's what I do today. And we have a product called Go Army Edge Football. The Army made it. That's why I left coaching, to help them make it. But it's a free football app where you can download it. It's for high schools, like college teams use it, NFL teams use it. But it's taken the game to a whole another level of, just preparation.
That's something you do. Army uses that, Joe, don't they, or no?
Yeah, Coach Monken and they've been using it forever.
That's not. Is it as far? That's more the mental game. It's not so much analytics, is it, or no?
Nothing to do with analytics. It's all this preparation. It doesn't replace practice. It doesn't. It's just it's understanding the perfect play, and it's an easy way to draw up what right looks like, and like Steve was saying, just to get extra mental reps of what they're going to see that week. Nice.
What if we can go back to your now you're committing to Army, right? What's early football your early football career like at West Point? Coming in as a freshman, how does that shake out at the beginning there?
So I went to the prep school. So as I was getting recruited, I was offered, hey, you're borderline. You could go direct or you could go prepster. I said, well, what's this prepster thing? And they explained it to me. And in my mind, I was like, I get an extra year of football. Like, I want to do that. Like, let me go to do that. It was at Fort Monmouth at the time. And so made the team. I was I ended up, they recruited me as a fullback. But within the first game of prep school, second game, I got moved from fullback back to running back because I was like a tweener. I really didn't have the size as a prepster or, play fullback. And then my speed was probably like just a hair too slow to play slot back. So I was like a tweener. So anyway, first two games, fullback. I was like second team fullback. They moved me to running back. I was a starting running back the rest of the year, and I ended up being the team captain of the prep school and offensive MVP. And then went to plebe year, and I was able to make the varsity as a plebe. I think I only played one scout team play ever in my career. Wow. And then I was second or third team running back. Again, same thing. Started at fullback like within the first week, and they moved me back to running back. And I played special teams. I think I played in 7 of 11 games on special teams my plebe year. Kickoff return.
Yeah, and so as that progresses, I mean, I'm sure like by the time it's your sophomore year, you get moving up the depth chart, and then what do you think? What was the? I mean, we talk about brotherhood a lot, right? About the Army program. What was that like back then? What was the camaraderie like between the team? Because that's when Army was. They were definitely solid, but they were building to something special in that. I know your last year was 94, but you had some really good teams and you had some really good games too against some really top opponents. So what was the camaraderie amongst the team back then? Is it just is it similar to what it is now, you think, or?
Oh, in my opinion, the brotherhood's the same throughout the history of Army football. I don't think it ever changes, and I don't think the wins and losses ever matter. I think the experiences you face as an Army football player is very similar. I think X's and O's kind of impact the wins and losses. I think luck impacts the wins and losses. My 4 years were under Bob Sutton. Coach Young had just retired. My plebe year was Coach Sutton's first year. And I always say, we were very good and we were very tight knit. So for example, like I said, so I'm a plebe. We're in summer practices. I'm up with a varsity, and we run an ISO play, and I block one of the linebackers who's a senior. And next thing I know, he's wailing on me. And Steve Shalhoub is one of the offensive linemen. He's a senior. I'm a plebe, but he comes in and just knocks the guy out. The rest of the linemen come out and go, "You leave our running back alone." I'm a plebe. I'm like shocked. Like, what are you talking about? I kind of like move in the back of the pile as they're fighting. And we'll get in the huddle and Schlute's I got your back. I'm like, whew, thank goodness. But I remember the next day in film, Coach Seymour's like, "Joe, like, this is great poise. Like, you didn't fight back or anything." I'm like, I was shocked that the guy's hitting me because I blocked him.
my hair hasn't even grown back from basic training, Coach. Like, I gotta get some time under my belt.
Can we reveal who the linebacker was, who the defensive player was, or no?
It was Beatty. I think it was Scott Beatty. I think, if I remember correctly.
That's a good introduction, right?
And that's it's funny because you can be, and I'm sure those guys were probably really close friends, outside the game. But it's funny when you do those, when that happens, the offensive lineman's always reaction is to protect their offense, not their friend on the other side of the ball. Right. And that's, like you said, that's what, that's why I loved having Ted Bentler on my side, because I always knew I was safe no matter what with Teddy.
See, Teddy needed today's rule so he could play the whole time.
Yeah, I know. No. I know, man. That we lost him on our it would have been his super senior year that he just got denied. So for ridiculous. They should have waived him. But one question I always like to ask, Joe, is right, you're a plebe, you got those guys you look up to, those guys that, not that they're untouchable, but they're your captains, or maybe they're their informal leaders, where it's like, man, that guy, I will follow that guy anywhere. And I'm sure you have those guys, but what was it about that culture when you were an underclassman, and who did you look up to or try to emulate as you, became the upperclassman and the starter throughout your career?
Yeah, like I said, so my plebe year, I thought the seniors did a great job of holding the team together, because we could have been very, very successful. We ended up being 4-7, but you could have easily been 7-4 because Willie McMillan gets hurt our second game of the year. And when we lose him as the quarterback, Coach Sutton had to shuffle a lot of the pieces around, and it just didn't take. But those guys kind of led the way and showed us what brotherhood was about, and, loving and caring for each other. As you're in your sophomore year, and now you've been there a year, you understand, like, okay, here's how we're going to compete. And I'll never forget, we called it the Dirty Dozen, and Mike McElrath was going to be a senior. And really, he led the way. Like, I wanted to be like Mike, the way he led the team. He was always positive. He was always optimistic. In the weight room, like, you're lifting until you throw up, but he was cheering you on. And the way he handled practices. But him and his other seniors, and there was only a few seniors left of that core group. Maybe 9-10 seniors of that class. But they did the Dirty Dozens, and it was him. He took it to Coach Sutton. And we got up every morning for 12 straight weeks at 5 a.m., and we go to Arvin Gym. And we do these crazy workouts for an hour before we went to school. And this was like January through March before spring ball. And it was 12 Dirty Dozens for 12 weeks for, 11 games and then the bowl game. And it just created a sense of belief. And we firmly believed no matter what the situation was, we were going to win. And you fast forward to the Army-Navy game my sophomore year. I think we're losing 17-7, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But I can tell you to a man, no one doubted that we were going to not win the game. Like, everyone believed we were going to win the game, even though we're down, right? And there's only 8 minutes left. I mean, the belief on the sidelines was just so intense. But that was from all season, starting from January, of Mike McElrath and that senior class, just instilling in us that, hey, no matter what the odds are, we're gonna win this game. And we came back and won. And I think we won 24, 22, or 20. I forget the score. But that's where Malcolm hit those 2 field goals at the end of the game, and Roper had a bootleg, and Gaylord Green caught the long pass. I mean, that senior class was just amazing. But every class adds something different. But that's what I remember is, Mike McElrath and Gaylord Green and all those guys setting the tone of belief. My freshman year was, Shalhoub and, all those guys that, set the tone for, brotherhood and coming together and, carrying each other through, because we had too many injuries my freshman year.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing you talk about, because I remember my freshman and sophomore year, it was almost the exact opposite, where it was almost like we were expecting to lose the game. You like you said on the sideline, there was never a doubt. Nobody ever. It's not only just like someone telling you that, it's a feeling, right? Like, you can feel it on the sideline when teams believe they can win, and when they're like, I think one of the sayings was, "Oh, here we go again." Whenever we got up or we lost the lead or whatever, it was something we battled. I would like to believe we got away from it, my senior year, but I still remember like having to, get into guys about what we're doing here, what the belief needs to be on the sidelines, because I could start to feel people doubt that, we could still win the game. So I can't, when you talk about that is your experience as a young guy, how that feeling and how essentially what right feels like, it's gotta be awesome to carry that throughout your career as they kind of pass the torch to you as you become an upperclassman.
Yeah, and I thought you guys did a pretty good job your senior year of believing and and fighting through some different adversity. I mean, it's very similar, but you're right. As my junior and senior year, that belief stood with us, and really my senior year was kind of the epitome of it. Was almost a replay of my freshman year, where we were devastated with injuries. We lost Roper. He started for 22 straight games as quarterback. We lost in the 6th play of our first game of our senior year. And then I think we the next game we lost the second string, Mike Nikovic. And then Carpenter came in, and it didn't work out with Carpenter. And then we finally Ronnie Makeda was number 4, 4th on the depth chart. So by the 3rd game, we're playing with our 4th string quarterback. And we had like 18 starters that were injured that year, and same thing, ended up 4-7. But if those injuries don't happen, I think we're 7-4. It flips it. We had a lot of games like Louisville. We were down, and we ended up winning 29-28, the last second touchdown. Just belief. Army Navy game, same thing. Just the belief that we're going to be in every game. And out of those 7 losses, I think there was a total of like 10 points. It was close every game. But I know when I talked to Ben Kawika and Ronnie Makeda and those guys from the 97 team that won 10-2, they always say, "Hey, Joe," it's like the belief and work ethic you guys instilled in us as your senior year, when we were sophomores, because all other sophomores had to play. They give us credit for that, and and then they pass it down. It just keeps getting passed down.
Yeah, we've had both those guys on here. Obviously, Coach K, still one of my mentors to this day, coached me at prep school. And Ronnie Makeda's, when he was on here, he was telling the same thing. So his Roper got hurt, and next thing he knew, he was in the game with like another injury, and he was like, "Oh, all right, well, here we go." And then he never left. So it's like you said, it's crazy how those things happen and how the trajectory of a season can go. Did you guys keep the Dirty Dozen thing going? Was that something that left with Mike, or was he the only one crazy enough that was going to make you guys do it?
Coach Sutton tried to do something different every year. And my sophomore year. I can't remember what we did in my junior and senior year, but every year he did something different and around that theme. Either fight team win or pride poise team. Dirty Dozen. And, I thought Coach Sutton did a really good job of, instilling the emotional and mental toughness in us by always bringing in different aspects. The way he talked to us before practice, after practice, before games, after games. He always had a motto or a saying and something to hang our hat on. I think it was like most desperate team wins. When you're desperate, you're gonna, when your back's against the wall, are you gonna claw, fight, kick? Game of inches. He always had really, really good analogies that to rally the team around.
Yeah, no doubt. Joe, so senior year, the two captains of the Army football team your senior year are yourself and Pat Work, right? And you just talked about some of the adversity you guys had to fight through with injuries and stuff. But at the final game of the season is Army Navy, right? And I'm sure you want to end your college career on a high note, and you guys certainly did by beating them. That's I don't know if that stands as one of the highlight in your career, because you were named the hero of the game for that game too. I guess that was kind of the MVP, so to speak, back then, or no?
I'm assuming. I don't know if there was an MVP or not, but yeah. So, that was a great game. It was awesome. For me, playing in the service academy game, I felt like I always played my best football, but it was always like I felt like I was playing in my backyard with my bunch of friends, and you just wanted the game just to keep going. And the crowd just quieted away, like it's just silent. It was just a fun game back and forth. And I don't know, I was very well prepared for Army, Navy, and Army Air Force games. And it seemed like I always played some of my best games, those games.
Was there a difference for you when you played Navy than when you played Air Force? It seems like that's the attitude with a lot of players, that Navy is the game and Air Force, is the team that's, the third brother, so to speak. But was there a difference when you played those teams, or?
That's a good question. I hated Air Force because I thought they were so cocky. And my plebe year, we played at Air Force. And I never forgot while we were stretching, like they ran over top of us and spit on us. And that's just ate in my head for 4 years. So it was just an angst. Like, okay, I don't like them. Where, Navy, I more respected because I think we respected each other as, service academies and how we played the game and so forth.
Did you say
the way I played and the way I prepared was the same?
Did you say they ran over top of you and spit on you guys?
Yeah, so they're running on the field, like we're already in the corner stretching. Like
yeah.
And as they're running on the field, like they're, and maybe because I'm a plebe with my first experience, I was like, what are you guys doing? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's pretty unanimous across the board. Whenever we talk to guys who have, had experiences with Army and Air Force, or Army and Navy, and Air Force and Navy, and all the combos. Universally, it's pretty much like, I really just hate Air Force. It's not that it's not that I don't like Navy as much. It's just I hate Air Force, and Navy I have a mutual respect for. It's interesting, same kind of deal, and it's like these stories that you hear all the time from Air Force. It's like they're cocky or they do something disrespectful, where I never really experienced that from Navy players. So it's just kind of it's just kind of interesting how Joe, we're almost 20 years apart, and basically is 15 years apart, and I had pretty similar interactions with both those teams. So
yeah.
So Joe, maybe we can slide to life after West Point for you, and the military side first, and what you did after what you did after West Point, where you were serving, and some of the memories there.
Yeah, so I stayed as a graduate assistant coach. I was actually a graduate assistant strength coach right after graduation. And then I went infantry. So I went to IOBC down at Fort Benning, Ranger School and all that stuff. Rick Roper was also infantry, and he stayed as a graduate assistant. So it was odd. Rick and I, one of the first guys I met at prep school. We're both prepsters. Our lockers were next to each other for 4 years. We coached together. We went IOBC together. We were in airborne school together, Ranger school together. Our first duty station is at Fort Hood together. And then we go to Fort Campbell together. So Rick and I were together for like our first 15 years. It was crazy.
That's incredible.
Oh no, it's weird.
That's gotta be one. I mean, that's gotta be 0.05%. I'd be interested to see who out there, and I'll put it up on here. If there's any Army football players out there that started prep school or even just plebe year and went through all the way through 2 duty stations, please let me know, because I want to know this percentage, because I think there's only one. That's the only one I've heard of.
Yeah. So Rick and I have known each other for 32 years, and I think we've been around each other for 23 of those, maybe 24 of those 30. Yeah. He works for me now. He's worked for me for 7 years. So as soon as he retired in 2015, I hired him. So it's
you had to, right? You had to.
So. I had to. Yeah. I told him to search for other jobs before he got the automatic hire. But no, so that was my career. So I was infantry, 101st, Fort Hood, deployed to Kosovo when 9/11 happened. So I didn't know about 9/11 for 3 days because we were doing our own thing. And then I came back, got my master's degree at Springfield College, taught at West Point, and then I was medically retired. I had some injuries that were just catching up to me, and I couldn't do the infantry thing anymore. So after 14 years, I was medically retired, and I got a job in Connecticut selling internet marketing for a company called Fine Law. I did that for 9 months, and Coach Ellerson got hired. I threw my name in the hat to see if he would hire me, and he hired me to be the special teams coordinator. So I did that for 3 years. But then what I was unsure what I wanted to do with my life. So right before I threw my name in the hat, I actually started my PhD, and I started Higher Echelon with my business partner. So on the side, we started Higher Echelon, and I was working on my PhD, and then I got hired to do the football thing. So I'm coaching football, I'm working on my PhD, and I'm starting a company. So all three at once. And it was all, nights and weekends, that kind of stuff. It was a slow process. But, after going into 2012, we built this quarterback simulator, for our quarterbacks. We're having great success. And that's when the Army came to me and said, hey, this quarterback simulator is awesome, but do you think we could build an app to give the high schools for free? And the reason the Army was interested was we've been at war for 10 years, and we had almost 1,000 high schools, restricted high schools, recruiters weren't allowed into high schools. So we needed to create a carrot on the stick to see, okay, if we have something, will they let them in? And their idea was football app, because they wanted those type of recruits. So I said I'd do it. And I moved to Huntsville. We made this app. We released it in 2014. Within a month of we releasing it, one of the biggest restricted high schools set up a workshop conference, and they invited 400 coaches, invited the recruiters in, so it was success. And so from that moment on, we built football apps, soccer apps, periodic table apps, anatomy apps, anything to help the recruiter get into the school. And it's been very successful.
Wow. Yeah, because how much you said you were also, Steve knows, for the Center of Enhanced Performance, you were also involved there for 6 years, I think, or 5 or 6 years doing that. So, I mean, that's where
for 5 years.
5 years, yeah. So that's where
08.
Gotcha. That's where you kind of also built that relationship and see as far as that's where the app kind of also gets started too. Just the ideas there we're dealing with cadets there too, or no?
Well, the idea is really, my whole career has kind of been tied together through Army football. Army football kind of is the thread that just keeps happening. From me being recruited and Coach Maley to me playing and, using the Center for Enhanced Performance and Louis Choka, Colonel Choka. Yeah, he started it. And then, when I became a lieutenant at Fort Hood, I would use some of the positive psychology with my soldiers and, some of the lessons I learned. Very basic. But really, I mean, I have very distinctive memories of certain things happening that's all tied together. And it first started when I took command at the 101st. Bob Caslin, so the Soup, General Caslin, was my boss. He was our Colonel Caslin. I was his brigade S1, and then I took command. And he called me into his office. He says, Joe, you're taking over the best war fighting company in the brigade and most likely the division. He goes, they're the best physically, tactically, technically. And he paused for a long time, and he goes, but he goes, they've been led by fear. And if you deploy and your leadership dies, your company is going to come to a halt. Fix it. So that was my guidance. So I walk out of his office and I'm thinking, man, best tactically, physically, like, what am I going to do? And all I could think of was the Center for Enhanced Performance. So I called back to Doc Z. I'm a young captain, and I hadn't seen Doc Z in 5 years. And I said, hey, I'm about to take command. Can you just give me a laundry list of things to do as a leader? And he gave me like 100 things to do. And I just slowly incorporated all those things into what I was doing as a leader. And we were getting ready to deploy. So we had 6 months to get ready. And literally my first 6 months of command were miserable because I'm doing things that are so unique to a typical Army unit. But the light bulb went off about 6 months into it. And really, we were getting ready for enter building, clear a room. And we were terrible. And I made everyone sit down. And I just walked them through an imagery session like Steve was talking about. And I read them the SOP for enter building, clear the room. And I said, now go do it again. And their performance went from here to here, like in one instance. So now all the NCOs, all the soldiers are believing in everything I tell them. So that, and with the way we train for attention control and just different things, it was all mental and emotional. So fast forward, ironically, I finished command and I went back to get my master's. Now that was luck because West Point called Roper to be the instructor and his timeline didn't work out. And I just happened to be in his office when they called him. So he handed me the phone and I was like, oh yeah, I can do it. So get my master's. I do my master's in like 15 months. I show up to West Point, and my first day on the job, the guy I'm replacing, Major Greg Barbello, he hands me this memorandum from General Saseki that says, operationalize the warrior ethos. And there's some other words in there. I read it, I looked at him, and I said, I know how to do this. And he goes, no one knows how to do this. I go, I know how to do this. I just did this for 2 years at the 101st. We deployed, we kicked butt. And I know how to do this. So I wrote a 100-page white paper of how to do it. And I didn't know, like, okay, what do I do with this 100-page white paper? And I knew it had to be tied to simulation, right? And because soldiers weren't just going to take lessons and sit in a workshop. How can you connect the 8 battle drills to, seeing it on a simulator, but also coaching them the mental skills at the same time? So Steve, just like you used to go to CEP, you come in the room and I would teach you how to breathe and, the confident thoughts, the self-awareness thoughts, the attention control, but while you're watching film, right? So you're doing it at the same time. So same thought process. So Casey Radinsky, Colonel Radinsky is working in this program called OEMA, Office of Economic Manpower Analysis. And now I have no idea this is at West Point. So I call this number because I found this thing called America's Army. And he answers it. And I'm like, hey, sir, I got this idea. I'd like to throw it by you. And his first answer was, hey, dumbass, do you know what area code you just called? 845? He goes, I'm right across the street. Why don't you just come across the street and talk to me? I'm like, okay. So I walk over. I show him my plan. He goes, hey, this is good. He goes, you need to brief the G1 of the Army. I'm like, the G1 of the Army? He goes, look, anything outside of West Point goes to the G1. West Point is strictly academics and sports. Anything military related reports to the G1. So that was the first lesson. Says, you got to talk to this guy named Buster Hagenbeck. He's the G1 of the Army. I'm like, okay. I said, how am I going to meet him? He says, well, he's going to be up here next week, and you're going to show up at the Fair Hotel, and you're at 5 a.m., and you're going to sit outside the elevator. And when he comes down, you're going to ask for 5 minutes of his time. And I go, are you serious? He goes, I'm dead serious. If you want this to go and get past, that's what you're going to do. So me being a dumb captain, I'm like, all right.
Elevator pitch.
What's that?
It's an elevator pitch. That's what they gave you.
So I show up. I'm there at 5. He finally comes down at 7 a.m. He comes off the elevator. I'm like, sir, can I get 5 minutes of your time? Now, he recognized me so this is where football comes in. He recognized me because of football. He goes, oh, Joe, I remember you. He goes, yeah, let's go back here in the back room. I'm like, sir, we've been talking about operationalizing the word ethos. Here's my plan or my idea to operationalize it. I said, we need to replicate what West Point has, the Center for Enhanced Performance, but it needs to be for the whole Army. And this is how we're going to do it. And I had the budget, I had everything. And he goes, Joe, this is really good. He goes, can you come to the Pentagon tomorrow to brief this to our Council of Colonels and General Officer Steering Committee? And I'm like, what? Tomorrow? He's like, yeah, come tomorrow. He goes, my aide's going to send you an operational needs statement. Fill it out. It's 1 page. Send it back in. Get on a plane. Show up, and you'll brief everyone. Now, he made it sound really easy, right? And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So I go back to my boss. I tell him, and my boss is like, you're dumb. Like, you're an idiot. Like, there's no way you're going to go to the Pentagon and brief all these people. I'm like, sir, the general told me I got to do it. Like, do I got permission? He's like, go ahead. So I said, look. So I walk into the Pentagon. I get lost. I dip into a bathroom to try to get my bearings. Guess who's in the bathroom? General Hagenbeck. And General Hagenbeck goes, Joe, I'm glad you made it. Let me give you some advice. He goes, you're going to get your ass kicked today because you're bringing an idea that no one knows of or has even heard of. He goes, I'm going to give you some advice. Whatever happens, don't quit. Put your head down like you're a fullback and just keep running and keep running and keep running. I'm like, all right, sir. Now, at the time, I didn't know what he meant, but as I was going through the process, my brain quickly caught on. So first briefing, I get F-bombed by every colonel in the room. Tell me how dumb my idea is. It's worse. And I'm sitting at a position of attention, and the colonel in charge, Colonel Averill, he says, all right, Captain Ross, I guess you're done here? No, sir, I'm not. He goes, what do you mean, no, sir? He goes, everyone just F-bombed you like a dumb idea. I go, well, sir, apparently I didn't brief this well enough, and I heard everyone say I should have staffed this correctly. I request permission to staff this with all the agencies so that I can, give an information brief back to the general who invited me down, General Hagenbeck. He drops his pen. He's like, do you know what you just asked? Yes, sir. I think so. He goes, all right, tell your boss that you're not coming back to West Point for 6 weeks. You're going to staff this thing. I'm like, all right. So I stayed in a hotel for 6 weeks. I hit every agency, and you get like everyone protecting their brother and every major who thinks they're so much tougher than a captain. And they're like the gatekeeper. But you get to the general officer, or you get to the SES, and they're just diarrhea of the mouth. They love the idea. So I'm taking notes. Put a new brief together. Brief it. It's a good brief, but they're still F-bombing me saying, hey, this is never going to pass. So I'm like, so what am I going to do now? So I said, all right, sir, since I was invited down for by General Hagenbeck, I request permission for an information brief only to the General Officer Steering Committee, which is the G3, G1, all the generals, the 3-star generals. He drops his pen again. Captain Ross, you're wasting everyone's time. Why do you want to do this? I go, sir, it's just an information brief. I go, this so they know. Now, if Hagenbeck doesn't see me in the bathroom, I don't do any of this. So the next day I have to come in. I get 10 minutes. And I brief. It's my worst performance of my life. I'm stuttering. It's terrible. I can't talk. Like, I can't even get my ideas across. And the same colonels that have been F-bombing me the whole time I'm there, they stand up and they start F-bombing me again. And General Lovelace swings his chair around and goes, Colonel, why don't you sit down? Captain Ross is the first person to give us any idea of how to operationalize the word ethos. No one else has done it for 2 years. And we're going to try this plan out. Swings back around. Captain Ross, you get 1 year to test it out. You get $1.6 million to do a pilot at wherever you choose, and you come back and report it. I'm like, cool. And Steve Carpenter was with me, right? He was working at the Center for Enhanced Performance. So I go back and I tell Steve we're gonna get the money, and Steve's like, oh, you know what we got to do? I'm like, what? Because we got to treat this like Yingling beer. I'm like, Yingling beer? What are you talking about? He goes, Yingling beer is only in Pennsylvania. He goes, we're in our Army that everybody wants it if they get it. And at the same time, we go, Special Forces. I'm like, all right. So we call down the 18 Airborne Corps, and we get the Special Forces. We tell them we got money. We just need a footprint. We just need to use it. And they're like, are you guys serious? We're like, yeah, we're dead serious. So we fly down there. We talk to them. They decide to do it with us. And, we do it for a year. It's successful. And then we do it Fort Jackson, Walter Reed, that's successful. And then the Army rolls it out to 18 locations. And then I ended up, medically retired. So that was my last 3 years in the Army, just doing all that stuff. So that's how the Army got involved with mental and emotional performance and pulling simulation into it. That's how I got involved in the Army doing it.
Yeah. Joe, what did they originally call it? What did you call it down in Special Forces?
We called it the Army Center for Enhanced Performance. And then in 2009, they changed their name to Comprehensive and Soldier and Family Fitness. Yeah. And what happened was, so you had two programs. You had one program focused on performance. That was 06 to 09. In 09, they started the resiliency program, but they needed the bodies to teach it. So all the sports psychologists that were doing the Army Center for Enhanced Performance started teaching resilience. And then in 2012, that was the other piece. The Army also asked me to come back and do a strategic analysis of that program while I was doing the football app, which I did. And then in 2012, they combined programs under this Comprehensive Soldier and Family Fitness, which changed names to Radiant Resilience, which I think changed the names again. So
no, I think it's still, we have the Army Wellness Centers, is what they go under. Together. But it's the R2, right? It's the R2 that's all R2. Over. It's the current day R2, and
but then you got holistic health and fitness too. So that's probably gonna be the new domain that umbrellas it all.
Well, they eventually want to get all these people down to, everybody gets one, right? Instead of like soldiers having to go to these centers, they want to embed these centers within each brigade or each battalion, whatever, however many they can get, right? So you have your sports psychiatrist or psychologists, you have your physical trainers, your personal trainers, your holistic thing. I think that's where we're going.
It's like a college football team, right? You got your athletic trainers, you got your nutritionists, you got your sports psychologists, you got your strength coaches. So it's replicating what Special Forces did. Special Forces got more sophisticated with Thor 3 and POTUF. So the Army's copying that. Now I agree with their format of the brigade with the pulled into the lifting and all the workouts. Because in my opinion, you can learn the mental and emotional traits and skills while you're working out, while you're lifting, while you're running. Because it's a skill, and that's the best way to do it. But you also can pull in simulation and imagery and apps, and that really helps supplement, because you can't hire enough nutritionists and hire enough sports psychologists. So you use those kind of things to help buffer, so you don't have thousands and thousands of contractors running around these gyms.
Yeah, Joe, it's so funny you talk about how it all kind of goes back to Army football, because as a young lieutenant, right, we did gunnery. Right. And gunnery, I had the R2 center build scripts, and we did our chair drills, but we did it with Bradley music. We did it with, or Bradley sounds. We did it with, we would put kind of like dust around us. Right. We try to incorporate all the imagery. So my guys would go out, and when they actually shot gunnery, they've been there before. They've done it before. Mm-hmm. They've seen the targets. They understand it. Likewise, and this was probably, however you want to call it, this was probably one of the most, proud moments I had as a young lieutenant, right, is I used to film our guys do the drills, right? Mm-hmm. And when guys would tell me, no, I did do that, sir. I'm like, all right, well, it got to a point where I was able to get approved to have a drone overhead. I stayed below like 100 feet or whatever it was back then. and I got to film them moving through the woods and their abilities to either, shoot and move at the same time. And when did we call up? And I was able to, basically time out when they made calls with where the film had it at the timeline. And guys would say, no, sir, we did that. And I'd be able to go, the eye in the sky don't lie, guys. All right. The eye in the sky does not lie. And that's what Coach Lyles used to always say. Mr. Coach Sadat used to always say in the film room. I'm like, nah, I had it. Yeah, well, they'd look at they point at the film and be like, Steve, Fitty, the eye in the sky don't lie. You did not do it. All right, well, I meant to do it. Damn it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, being an Army officer is just like being a football coach, right?
Yep.
And as an Army officer, your players are the 8 battle drills, right? And you got your defense, you got your offense, you got your special teams. It's all the same. And then how you train them, the eye in the skies, the simulation, the mental. It's so football is the closest thing to being a soldier and being in combat. It's the closest thing. And that's why, the Army football app, we want football players in our Army. We want athletes in our Army. I hear you.
Joe, it's so incredible to hear this kind of, come from you. Cause I always knew you were involved in CEP, and I always knew, you had kind of this niche for the R2 center, but I never knew it got that intense that quick just from, an elevator pitch to General Hagenbeck. I didn't know. I actually didn't know until now who the officer was you briefed. I heard the story of you briefing a GO at the Thayer, but I never knew who it was or his ties, or how you got to the Pentagon, how you got this ball rolling. So that's really intense. It got intense real quick, which is as an Army football player, you don't mind. You don't feel the heat. You're just like, hey, I got an idea. And that's probably, like you said, everyone always talks about, you always hear, cadets ask, what can I do to prepare myself to be an infantry officer, to be a field artillery officer. And Colonel Polka told us that when we were young football players. He was like, what you get out of Army football will prepare you better than any class you sit in, or any training event you do during your time at West Point. I mean, it's
everything I learned in Army football, from leadership to how you train to how you get them ready mentally, emotionally, to how you think outside the box, how you adjust, how you adapt. Army football is the biggest.
And how you finish, right, Joe?
Yeah, how you finish.
How you finish is that to me is one of those intangible stick to itness things. Like, you could have easily gone back to West Point after your Pentagon briefing and been like, man, they didn't like it. Sorry, guys.
We'll be champions. Can you stick it out? Grit it out.
It's an awesome story.
I wrote the Soldier's Creed too. 70% of it.
No, I didn't know that.
In 2004, so that was kind of the beginning. So in 2004, I got to be on this think tank down at Fort Benning, and they're talking about changing because we just started Afghanistan, Iraq. We're like 1 year into it. Really, we didn't have a mindset that we were warriors. We had, we're in the infantry, we got transportation, we got field artillery. Everyone was like individuals. And they're like, oh, we're going to change training. We're going to change our uniform. And I'm in this think tank. I'm like, guys, like, it has nothing to do with the uniforms and how you train. I mean, we already train well. It's our mindset. I said, we got a NCO creed. We got a special forces creed. We got a ranger creed. We don't have a soldier's creed. And literally, I wrote it on a napkin. And we had guidance. So the 4 basic elements of the soldier's creed was given to us by the chief of staff of the Army. And then we basically, the rest of it was based on my experience at CEP and using positive affirmations and so forth. Wrote it on, and in the next month it was published. 2004.
Wow, that's incredible. That was every night at the prep school. So thank you, Joe. I recited that every night. We yelled it outside as we drank water next to our doors in our PTs. Every night we had a prior service platoon sergeant, cadet platoon sergeant, right? Cal, who was a cadet sergeant, who was a prior service guy. And he loved the Soldier Creed. And we said it, we yelled it, we screamed it every single night for 3 weeks. And like you said, it's a bunch of positive reinforcement. It's a positive affirmations that go in there. And it's so much so that as I was leaving Fort Campbell, we started saying the Soldier's Creed daily. General McGee loves it that much. So it's an interesting how when the Soldier Creed would publish and why and how it became a thing. Because like you said, a lot of, we were talking to Jason Fraser about this the other day, about how the culture and the mindset can completely change an organization. You don't change anything else. You just change that culture and for the better, and just how the positive impacts and what you can see in the future happens. I did not know that you were a part of the Soldier's Creed. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And we learned that from football. Our the Army football culture, the brotherhood, and how we respect each other, how we believe, how we fight together. The togetherness. All that stuff. We know what right looks like, and you try to take that in every organization you're a part of.
Yep, 100%. Could not agree more.
Amazing, Joe. Any other major Army events you were involved in, or anything like that that you could share with us? You had some great. You had some pretty good stories. Also, we wanted to bring up the Army Prep connection, right? Were you there over the weekend? Your son's at Army Prep right now, right?
Yeah. So my son's a prepster, and right now he's playing slot back for the football team. And they started school this week. So last week was a reorderly week. They finished basic and they did some workouts. But I asked him if he knew the Soldier's Creed. And I was like, do you know who wrote that? He's like, no. I said, he's like, oh, you're killing me, Dad. But anyway, they start practice next week, and he's loving it. He had a big smile on his face and really enjoying it, and he's excited to be part of the brotherhood.
Nice.
That's it. That's incredible. That's man, talk about full circle. It's just too bad he isn't enjoying the Jersey Shore like we did down at Fort Monmouth.
Oh,
right?
I know.
Probably a little better that he's up at West Point as a father. As I have sons, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a good thing they're
yeah, they're definitely more focused at West Point. But no, my other stories in the Army. I mean, I was very lucky. Not lucky, but I deployed to Kosovo, which was supposed to be a peacekeeping mission, and it was about 2 years into it, and it was right before 9/11. And we had the chicken leg area, and there was just a lot of crime, a lot of bad stuff that was going on, and we ended up chasing Osama bin Laden. And this is before 9/11. We caught 2 guys on the top CIA wanted list. We ended up detaining 400 insurgents, and we were in a firefight right before, a week before 9/11 that most people don't know about. So we were very, very proud of that experience. We thought we were going to be the first unit to go in Afghanistan because we were the best trained, most ready. But at the time, we were deployed for 7 months, and they decided they wanted to send a fresher unit in. But I'm very proud of that unit. From the 101st, we had 25 Rangers in our unit, and we just kicked butt. And it goes back to what we learned in Army football. So when we trained, part of that training was I had the Dirty Dozen, a part of that training. You had 4 days of interdict mission, 4 days of security mission, like secure the town, and 4 days of 4 days interdict, security. And I forget the other 4 days, but it was your weapons, clean your weapons and everything. And you rotate. So everyone got 1 day off every 12 days. Right? And the squad leaders and everyone had to work it. And we trained on that. And we wanted to keep our energy through the whole deployment. And I remember a month and a half into it, my leadership's like, hey, Joe, you guys aren't pushing hard enough. You guys aren't catching enough. These other units are doing well. So I go back to my unit and say, hey, sir, or hey, guys, they want us to, scratch our plan, the Dirty Dozen, and to a lieutenant, to a platoon sergeant. They all came back at me at once. Sir, we've been training this. You told us this is going to give our energy, our attention and our focus and our confidence. we're going around taking pictures of, different things so we can, practice our imagery before we raid a home. Because we're just going to scratch all our training. And I'm like, nope, we're going to stick our plan. I went back to my boss. And I said, sir, we're sticking with our plan. We're not changing it. Captain Ross. I said, sir, we're sticking with it. You better do something. You better get better. Yes, sir. Within the next 2 weeks, those other 7 companies hit a wall. And when they hit a wall, they are having anarchy. They were fighting. They couldn't do anything. And our company, and, like I said, the whole battalion or the whole brigade only detained 500 insurgents, and we detained 400 of them. Wow. We were a machine. Like those soldiers were incredible.
What company, battalion, brigade?
I was Bravo, 2nd of the 502nd. Nice. Renegades. Strike Force. Strike.
Yeah. It's awesome. Wow. I just came last year. I was in command of the Rakkasan, so we love Strike.
Rakkasan's almost good as Strike. We got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, one of our battalion commanders in the Rakkasans, he was Colonel Stoltz. He immediately went to be the G3 of the 82nd, helped with the exfil out of Afghanistan, and now he's pegged to be 2nd Brigade Strike 6. So within 2 years, he's leaving 3rd Brigade as a battalion commander, and now he's become the 2nd Brigade commander. So awesome individual and great leader. So they're in good hands. Just know that your old brigade is in good hands. Is that so? Was Caslin your brigade commander during that time?
Yeah. So when I deployed, he wasn't. He got changed out, but he was the strike commander.
Okay.
And then I think Powell was there before him. Who else? Petraeus. I think all of them had kind of rotated through that.
Wow. Yeah. And then do you remember who was your battalion commander?
Chris Reddish.
Okay. I was just curious.
And then Roper was in my sister battalion, Widowmakers. So he was there as a company commander.
Do you is that who you called your battalion commander? Like, sir, just give us some time. Let it
well, I was lucky because I was my company was attached to 3rd ID.
Oh, okay.
And my company was put into the hottest area, and I was the main effort. So it was Colonel Reddish that called me and said, "Hey, you guys aren't doing this." And that was kind of my buffer because I didn't have to report to him. I was reporting to a new brigade, and I was like, "Well, we're going to stick with my plan," and because I wasn't reporting directly to him at that time.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
Wow. Just some great stories from you, Joe. We really appreciate your time. We got to get in a little bit of this too. I mean, we're podcasters, Steve and I, right? I have a little bit of a writing background, but you're the professional. There's a program that you go on that reviews Army football fan shows, so to speak. Crawdad's Countdown to Kickoff. Talk about that. I know you appear on that every once in a while. You appear on that as a guest, as a host, actually, not a guest.
Yeah. Crawdad Countdown to Kickoff. Bill Crawford, Steve Pripey, Tom Economy. They've been doing this show. We're starting our 12th season this year. They started before I got to Huntsville, but I think when I was coaching, I think I was one of their first guests. So, kind of serendipity that I come around. But they do a wonderful show tracking Army football and, talking. Basically it's a, pregame, what's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly. We do it on Wednesday nights, but it's on Facebook, and I think it's streamed, so you can watch it, at any time. It used to be an hour before the kickoff, and then we moved it, but now I think it's gonna be both. But just a phenomenal, fun gathering. It started here in Huntsville because there's 600 West Point grads here in Huntsville in this Tennessee Valley area. And Bill Crawford was able to make a deal with ESPN Radio in the area and got a prime spot back in 2011, 10 timeframe. And they've been on ever since. So you got Alabama football and Army football. That's pretty much all they talk about. Auburn sneaks in every once in a while, but it's usually Alabama and Army right in this area.
Yeah, and actually, right, the roles have been reversed where I've appeared on the Crawdads Countdown to Kickoff, and you've asked me questions, right? So you feel the hard questions. You throw high and hard when you were asking me questions. You wanted to know, stuff I knew, but I really couldn't reveal. Otherwise, my press pass would probably be taken away from me. So that kind of stuff. You wanted to go in depth, and I wish I could at the time, but I'm like, they were threatening my press pass a couple of times just for like stuff that was just not even that interesting, And I'm like, okay, man, I'm gonna give you like just the bland old reporter's answer right there, Joe. And I'm sure you probably would have had a couple follow-ups after those, but it's great, right? It's great to connect with you here today. We really thank you for all your time, and like I said, your support to the Black Knight Nation podcast. Our YouTube channel is growing with subscribers. Our website, Joe, I don't know if you know this, but our website has right now, we kind of redid it in December 2020. We have in excess of over 3 million hits on our website, Black Knight Nation, since then. So it's 2 years, pretty well received, and with your support, we're able to keep this going. So we really appreciate that so much.
Well, it's my honor. I absolutely love Army football. I love everyone who's ever wore the helmet, and I'm a firm believer. I don't care if you played in the 1910, 1930s, 1950s, 70s, 80s, until today. When you meet an Army football player, we're the same. And I've talked to Jody Glory, who's class, 69, and those great teams back in the 60s, and I feel like I'm talking to my teammate. And I talked to Steve Anderson, I feel like I'm talking to my teammate. Ray Stiff, class of 06. He works for me now. He's my senior VP of HR. Roper works for me. Paul Andrzejewski, class 94, he works for me. Donnie Horner, class 81, he works for higher echelon. And so Steve Spalding, another classmate, works for. So I get this little mafia of Army football players. And then my business partner started out his career being recruited by Army football, but he lost too much weight during Beast, and he ended up transitioning to lacrosse to be a strength coach. So that connection there is just. You trust, you're going to get grit, they're going to be loyal, they're going to think outside the box, and they're going to fight to win, whatever that looks like. And sometimes in this business, it's very ambiguous, it's very complex, it's very uncertain, but you need guys that aren't going to quit, and they're going to keep fighting, and they're going to find a solution for you. And we got a bunch of winners on our team that do that for us every single day.
Yeah, it's amazing how, I remember talking to, you about, and just finding out about the arm, like Roper, at higher echelon, and the team of, you basically have an Army football brotherhood there too. So it's awesome. Thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it. We could probably talk to you forever, Joe, about the stories. We didn't really talk too much about a little bit about your football career, but your coaching at West Point too. That was a couple.
Yeah, I'm very, very thankful to Coach Ellerson. He gave me a chance when, a lot of coaches wouldn't give a guy like me a chance. It helped that I was in CEP for 5 years and worked around the football team a lot. But, I left for 1 year, and, Ellerson didn't know me from Adam. But he did take the chance to interview me. I probably interviewed better on defense than I did offense because I had a conversation with Pat Work who pooped me up before the interview, and I didn't do enough pooping up on the offensive side. But Ellerson gave me a chance, and really it's changed my life because, I had the opportunity to build the football simulator, and, that, really led into what I do now. And, taking CEP, taking the simulator, and, so I'm internally thankful to Coach Ellerson just for giving me a chance.
Have you connected with him at all? Coach
I have not touched Coach Ellerson in probably 10 years.
Wow.
I left, and, he went on, but I'd love to catch up with him.
Yeah, Steve, you were gonna.
I was gonna say he got a chance to meet his favorite Army linebacker of all time when he got to coach there. So, of course, it was.
I knew but didn't you start in 08?
No, it was 07. 07. Well, 06 was my
at prep school, right?
Yeah, 06 to 07 prep school, and then 07 was my my freshman year. 07, 08.
Yeah. So in 06, that's when I met you at prep school because I went and did those interviews with Coach Ross. would have us go do player profiles on all the prepsters and all the incoming pleats.
Oh,
And
I
it
thought
wasn't
we were just talking, Joe. I didn't know you were doing a profile on me.
well. The reason the profile was to be able to coach you faster. Coach Ross wanted you to be able to accelerate their experience, and he was able to do that through different tools and assessments that we were using. And so every incoming plea, either from prep school or direct, had a player profile that we gave to the coaches and said, all right, here's the points you want to address and hit on to get them to learn faster.
Yeah, well, I never got mine. Okay, so if you could find that, that'd be great.
I can pull it up. I still have it.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. I keep everything.
Joe, email that to me, man. I'd be interested to see what it looked like.
All right.
I'll shoot. I'll get your number from Sal, and I'll shoot you my number.
We'll have to also we'll have to get you on back and talk about Steve's special teams play. Also, Steve was talking about how he's on all the special teams, even to the senior year. So we'll have to get you on maybe again to talk about specifically about Steve's special teams play. So
they were animals. Steve and Josh McNary led the way. I mean, they played as seniors on special teams. We were 32nd on kickoff. We were ranked on punt defense. We were third in the nation. Like those two,
I know.
we were on.
One
Josh being on those teams.
Yeah, one punt, Kent State. Jay Bulls, me and Josh Bulls still talk about it to this day. That one punt, he got like a 27-yard return on us, and we had 2 missed tackles. And Bulls always talking to me. He's like, that was our number one. That just kept us from getting number one punt.
We got the win. We got to the bowl game.
That's right.
Yeah,
that was when we got the win and got to celebrate in the locker room afterwards. So
that's right.
I was there at that game. I covered that game, and that's some of my best memories of Army football. That game, and you guys being able to clinch that bowl berth, Steve, and to know that you and also Joe had a part of that is pretty awesome. We're gonna sign off now, but Joe, thanks so much again for coming on. This was great to hear all the stories, not only about the Army Football Brotherhood, but what you did after West Point and your impact on the Army, the big Army, so to speak. We really appreciate you coming on, and of course, as sponsor, there's an open invitation to join the podcast anytime you want and talk some more about, like you said, like Steve's special teams prowess, or just maybe your thoughts on the program too, because I'm sure you have some thoughts on the program and where it's at right now, and maybe we could get you back on soon.
Thank you, Sal. Thank you, Steve. I think Coach Bunkman's doing a phenomenal job. He's that general leading the way, and he's leading by example. I love his toughness. So
100%.
I'm a big fan. He's doing great.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for joining the Black Knight Nation podcast. Please check out our YouTube channel for archived. We just had on Jason Frazier, Nate Hunterton, Greg Gadsden. We can run through the list, right, Stephen? We have some more coming up, and now we add Joe Ross. Thanks so much, Joe, and we'll see you guys soon on the Black Knight Nation podcast.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Talk soon.
Yeah.